We welcome into the show Chuck Pagano, former head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, longtime defensive coordinator, certainly known for that style of football, such an incredible defensive mind, and living a little bit of a different life in retirement out in Boise. I am very jealous, by the way. Welcome in, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How is retirement treating you, by the way?
Awesome. Like you mentioned, in Boise full-time. I've got my 3 daughters, 3 granddaughters, grandson here. Life's good. Playing a lot of golf when the weather cooperates, and so no complaints here.
Oh, yeah, you get to play that golf. I'm sure you wake up in the middle of the night wondering if Al Davis is going to yell at you for not having the free safety in the middle of the field. But I know you do a lot of studying on the NFL. I wake up, Chuck, in the middle of the night wondering if what I did wrong that day, he's going to call me. You know, I still get those shivers. Oh. But let's talk about your former team, the Colts. You know, Anthony Richardson, to me, great talent, not a great quarterback yet. What do you see from them and talking to people within the organization on how he's developing?
Yeah, talking to Shane, I ran into Shane a few weeks ago at a deal out in California, a little get-together for Norv. You know, they're really excited about this kid, and obviously the skill set that Anthony has, the measurables, all that stuff. It's just a experience thing and time on task, but they're going to throw him in there. What he did with Jalen Hurts, I don't see this being any different with Anthony Richardson. They've got a good offensive line. Those guys need to play better. They've got weapons around them. Got 2 big tight ends, you know, Pierce and Pittman on the outside. They picked up McKenzie, I think, from Buffalo, Jonathan Taylor. So they're super excited about this kid and what he can do. It's not going to be perfect. Gus will do a great job on the defensive side. They'll play great defense. Special teams, you know, they lost Bubba Ventrone over there, who was a great special teams coordinator, went to Cleveland, bring in a guy, I think, from Notre Dame. But so they'll play great team football. They'll manage the game well, but they're super excited about this kid's, you know, what his ceiling can be, and if they can get him to it, look out.
Certainly a player with really, really tremendous upside. Year one, though, for any rookie, never easy. We'll see what they can do. Total wins on the board sitting at 6.5 right now. The Jags are the favorite in that AFC South. Another headline, I guess, for the Indianapolis Colts recently, though, not been in the best way. Corner Isaiah Rodgers dealing with the potential downfall of what happened with the sports betting investigation, and a lot of teams having to deal with this now. We saw the Lions, of course, Calvin Ridley suspended for an entire year last year. You know, if you're in an NFL locker room today, what are these conversations like with your players to understand your career could be on the line for something that's really unimportant in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, Stormy, it's continuing education. You know, the league sends a group of people over to your facility every spring this time of the year, and they go through the, you know, the gambling policy with the coaches and players, and you can't do it. And to risk, you know, your longevity, the salary that you're it's just crazy. So you continue to educate these guys, and you can't ever assume that everybody understands and knows all the nuances of what's going on. I mean, it's so easy and so accessible now to bet on games and the gambling and the apps and the way they're tracking you and all these kind of things. You just can't do it. And it's just wild to me, but you gotta educate, you gotta have these conversations. And to me, it's like we always tried to get the gray out of football, right? The gray area out of coverages and the communication things and make it as simple as possible. So to me, it's like, okay, you can bet on this, but you can't bet on that. So it's just got to be like, guys, you're rolling the dice. You just can't do it. So why even risk it?
Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I mean, to me, again, it comes down to education all the way, and I think you got to stay on them. You know, from coaching as long as you have, players don't always retain. That you got to keep educating them on a daily basis. Your background, obviously, head coach of the Colts, great defensive coordinator. Talk to me a little bit about what Vic Fangio will bring to this Miami defense, knowing that he's got Jalen Ramsey on one side to really kind of roll the coverage away from Ramsey and let Ramsey live on an island.
Yeah, that was a great get, for the Dolphins. They won the Fangio sweepstakes, if you will. I know everybody, was vying for, Vic to be their defensive coordinator. But following Vic at Chicago, we all know what, they were number one in a ton of categories. But he'll do a great job there. And you mentioned, picking up Ramsey. Yeah, you can, somebody's going to have a great wide receiver, they're number one. And if you can, roll the coverage to that guy, we used to, it's a quarter, half principle. You roll up, jam, reroute, have safety help over the top of that guy. And then you've got a guy like Jalen Ramsey, on the other side, and just say, hey, basically, okay, you're kind of on your own. You've got this other dude, all by yourself. If they got two wide receivers, then great. You got one guy like Ramsey who can, play man to man and take care of one side of the field, and then roll the coverage. It isn't just going to – he loves the split safety stuff, Michael. As you know, you've studied him over the years. He does a great job. They got Chubb. They got Jalen Phillips, Christian Wilkins inside. I think they picked up the inside linebacker, Long from Tennessee, I believe it is. So yep. You should see marked improvement, from the Miami defense and what Vic will do there. He's just, and it's a lot. He does a lot. So, this offseason for them has been big as far as, him installing his defensive package and how they do things.
Is there another coordinator that stands out to you that you really think could make an impact this year? And maybe just in general, what the difference can be when you bring in an experienced coordinator into a place that needs it?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's big. I think it's huge, but I'm really excited to see what Steve Wilks does, up in San Francisco. He's been a defensive guy on that side of the ball his entire career. The job that he did in Carolina last year, taking over as the interim, but following D'Amico there, no easy task. We know they've got a great defense. Picked up, Javon Hargrave in the offseason, free agent from Philly. But I'm excited to see what he does and how much they retain. The big thing to me, Stormy, is always, okay, how much change are you going to do? Because going to Chicago and following Vic, for me to go in there and not, because we had used similar coverages, and it's usually a terminology thing. That's the big difference. But you got all these great players. They just coming off a great season, statistically, all that kind of thing. So, to see what these guys go in and how much they're going to change, certainly you want to put your footprint, your fingerprints on the defense, but as much carryover, to me, it was like, okay, look, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to take it off the players and try to learn the terminology myself, what was used, and used a lot of what Vic did, in Chicago. So it'll be interesting to see, what like Steve Wilks does in San Francisco and the success they've got great players all over the place. So they should be okay, obviously.
Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I think what D'Amico did when he took over for Saleh, he kind of advanced that defense. They just weren't a Seattle 3 team. They were more willing to do different things, and they weren't as generic. And it's going to be interesting what Wilks does, because he's not a Seattle 3 guy. So I do think that's going to be a key component of where they are. How about in Philadelphia? Would they lose Gannon and they lose Shane Steichen? How much do you think that will affect their team this season?
It's gotta be some, right? Because yep. I don't know if, like, Brian Johnson, I think Brian Johnson is the new, the OC, and, whether he's actually going to call it or is Nick, going to call it, and then defensively, I mean, anytime you lose guys, to head coaching jobs, like you mentioned, there's going to be something there. And I think the positive thing, Howie did an unbelievable job, right? When you think their whole team's going to be dismantled, right? Fall apart, and Slay's going to be gone, Bradbury's gone, this guy, that guy. I mean, they lose one guy. They sign all those guys back. So they still got those veteran, all the veteran leadership in the locker room, which is going to be key. But then, as we know, Vic was doing, stuff with them. But Desai coming in there, he'll be able to keep a lot of the same principles. But there'll be some growing pains there, I think.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.